tonight's program, we're really delighted to be able to have a screening that sort of is in dialogue with the Lauren Halsey show that opened here last week. And if you haven't had a chance, it's pretty much right at the top of the stairs. It's a marvelous installation and ongoing work of creation. So if you weren't able to see it before the show, after the show they'll sort of usher us all out of the museum so that so we can all be done by 9 p.m. But please come back and spend more time with it. And we were really delighted to have two of our filmmakers here tonight, Dana Washington and Amir George. They'll be joining us after the program for a Q&A. But welcome to Dana and Amir. Both of them, I'm not sure how many of you might have been here last week for the Black Radical Imagination show, but both Dana was one of the filmmakers of that, Amir is one of the original programmers for that, and our programmers for tonight's show are the new curators for Black Radical Imagination, including those who curated last week's wonderful program, Daryl Kay and Jheanelle Brown. And please join me in welcoming to introduce tonight's show and then to run the Q&A later, the curator and educator, Jheanelle Brown.
Hi everyone, thank you for being here. I like to keep it short because I just like to watch stuff. But yeah, so this is in conversation with Lauren Halsey's marvelous site-specific installation that's upstairs. And so with Amir, Mike, and Dana's films, we're just going to be exploring spirituality, liberation, the metaphysical, the collective, all in relation, of course, to Blackness. So enjoy and have some questions ready for us later. Thank you. Hi everyone, thanks for staying till the end. So just an FYI, we have a mic runner, so when it comes to Q&A from the audience, Tatiana will run it to you. So I'll start off with some questions for Dana and Amir, and then we'll keep it rolling. So this is a question for both of y'all, but can y'all talk about just how the spiritual has come to occupy such a prominent place in your filmmaking practice, and just what your relationship to that is?
I think that the spirit is always present, and I just try to figure out how to work with it, how to use it in my work, and I guess it's something that I just been thinking about over time, and I'm still thinking about. So I think it's always spirits influencing the physical world. So yeah, I'm just everything I make, I try to interact with it at some point.
I'm gonna push you a little bit. So you said how you keep thinking about it. So just maybe has there been an evolution to when you first started as a filmmaker and then now?
Yeah, I think throughout the different the processes and just going into making the work and trying to think through certain ideas and telling a spiritual story, and not just a beginning, middle, and end, but trying to find something out new about myself that I didn't know before. So
I don't have a logical answer, but I think that a lot of the work that I do starts with dreams, and I think that for me, the spirit, or I'll just say God, I think that God works through me in a dream state, in dream states. And I think that in turn, when it comes to the work, I just feel the spiritual just kind of makes its way into the work. I guess it's just kind of improvisation in a sense. Yeah.
But actually, so to piggyback off of that, you said there's no logic to it, it's improvisational. But especially when it comes to liberated zones, we're talking about. Thank you. We're talking about, I guess there's more of a sense of maybe agency and change. So maybe So what's your relationship, I guess, what's the relationship to the spiritual, but then to liberation, to sort of an active imagining of maybe a future for Black folks in general?
So I just personally, I have an agency for freedom because I think that there's a reckoning with existence and with the way that the world has, systems of oppression kind of just working against me, Black people. I'm just really looking at so I guess my research in school is utopian studies, and I'm kind of like mixing utopian studies with the Black imagination and trying to make it concrete and making it like a social art practice. So liberated zones is essentially an imagined liberated site that's working as an intervention to Black suffering. And the Black suffering, liberation, freedom are kind of working in conjunction with one another. And I think I'm using just my imagination to kind of deal with that. And in liberated zones, there's a lot of suffering happening. And in the first video, I'm still dealing with the death of my grandfather. I'm dealing with being a Black queer person in a very white conservative city of La Jolla and in a very strange institution. So liberated zones is like kind of a response to that. And in the second video, we're dealing with Black mothers, Black motherhood, and I think that there's a lot of, I think the act of raising a Black child, it's only speculation because I'm not a mother, but as a daughter, I think that the act of raising a child is laborious and there's suffering in that. And I guess liberated zones is just like me thinking through what it means to tend to yourself as a way to, I guess, to work against oppression or barriers and whatnot. But spiritually, I can't really say about spiritually. I know that there's types of healing that are present that you may see in church, like the laying of hands over the body or on the body, the praise dance, the ring shout. And in the second video, there's a child healer who's pretty much preparing resins and I guess preparing the house for healing. And I guess I'm just looking at liberated zones as like a type of healing, a type of practice for like literally liberation.
You just gave me someone like with,
I'm sorry.
No, in a good way, like Fred Moulton, Horton Spillers, Claudia Rankinger's church. That's when I'm smiling. So
Cool.
Because it's amazing. Thank you. Amir, so can you talk about just like the metaphysical in your work, particularly in Decadent Asylum, and just how it functions?
It's a lot in there. It's very dense. I guess I was interested in like alchemy and exploring those things. Then I found out about tea making and the process of that, and then I started thinking about how those processes are like related to each other. And the metaphysical is just a part of all of that, and how we tap into this other energy to like make lead, like into gold. That's like alchemy.
Okay, so can you talk a little bit more about then, like the importance, like what is the importance of tapping into these sacred sciences?
I think
from your viewpoint maybe, and also from like a collective viewpoint.
Well, I just was interested in it, just as creating like images around it, and I've been reading a lot of Alejandro Jodorowsky, and yeah, I was really inspired by different cultures, and how in cultures the metaphysical like exists differently, but it all kind of like interacts together. So it's just like a series of things over time. So I just like compiled together and created the film.
Cool. I have like a couple more questions, but no reason to hear me speak some more if anyone else has questions, so have at it.
First of all, thank you, 2 weeks in a row. It's really nice to become more familiar with both of your work. A pleasure to see so many of Amir's films all at once. I love your use of movement and the dancing body in your work, and I'm curious, excuse me, to know more about that. It almost seems like a tool for narration, and I'm curious about that in your work.
Yeah, I think dancing is a tool because I think it's like so much like to like capture there when I'm like filming dancers. I feel like it's like numerous things, and like a lot of those songs you hear, like those dancers aren't like dancing to those songs like originally, and we don't even like think about music. They just move around. So I just take whatever like I get from them and like put it together. So but. It just helps with it's kind of like I like ideas along, yeah.
Someone up front.
Sorry. Someone else. I'm sorry. Thank you. I guess when it comes to both films, there was a lot of footage. I wonder kind of, some of it streams from like, I don't know how old you both are, but even probably like before my time or whatnot, but I just wonder like, in the mind thought process when creating these films, like how long did it take you to come up with all this footage and like the art and just everything,
I made my video, well, there's 2 videos. The first video where there's a montage of videos, that took 2 days. And I think I did the video first and then the narration second. But the second video with the mother and the child, I think we filmed for like 4 or 5 hours. And then I think I did editing in like 2 days. It doesn't really take that long. When I start to make something, I just kind of block out the world and I just kind of just sit at the computer and just work. So it doesn't take me a long time to make things.
I would say that the process it varies with each like project. Some things take a couple hours, some things take a couple months. So it was a combination of the two.
Especially like with the art that was presented in the beginning, I would say more because it was like the guy that was in church, the preacher that was up there talking, the different footage with the woman that was like at some kind of event and she was just talking about blackness and everything, all those type of things that were in the very, very beginning.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to.
Oh yeah, it took me a couple hours because I just started working with that like sound clip.
Right.
And started just playing around with that and just sourcing images, and it's so many images of blackness, I didn't know what to decide on. So I just tried to narrow it down and just have something. But like that piece is an ongoing piece, so it always like changes every time I show it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Hi, and thank you for coming, for you both. My question is for Amir, for Optimum Continuum. What stood out to me was the relationship between the dancing and the characters, or the dancers themselves. And I don't know how to form this question well, maybe you'll be able to take it on, but I'm just curious to know, it seemed like the female dancer was more present, especially when more in the foreground, and but also the dance itself between both of them was also very narrative. And so I'm wondering, for that film, who is the character? Who are we following? Not that we have to be, but I'm just wondering who the narrator is, or where am I watching? Sorry.
Yeah. I was in like Glasgow and I had I actually met them like that day. I had asked them to just come and shoot, and we didn't plan anything. They kind of just danced for 2 hours around the park, and then I just started playing around with the footage. And they're part of a crew, a dance crew together, but they had dance here and there. But I just kind of like pretty much like let the footage pretty much like guide it. And as I place the music in certain parts, it just fits. So, but I mean, like eventually, like it's going to change anyway. So, but it was just really like organic. So to like work with them.
It's really amazing because there were moments when the camera zoomed into one of them and it would seem like perfect timing, and then it would go to the other dancer, and it just seems so.
Yeah, I was trying to like just get a good frame and just went around.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, it was really pleasure to watch this interesting film. I have a question. If you were to explain, like in a short way, the transition of the film, like where it started and a path of the film and where it had ended, how would you explain that? Did you get my question? Sorry, I'm not the native speaker.
No, it's okay. Which film are you talking about?
As far as like all of them, if you put together, like what was the idea of the beginning, middle, and end, or they are not connected to each other?
They are connected to each other. I think for us, for Daryl and I, it was about time, I guess, is dynamic. And so with our second film, Mike Henderson, that is about slavery. But we're starting off with Amir's film, which which I think kind of stands as an interesting, as how I see it, an interesting foil to maybe some discussions around Afro-pessimism, which maybe can be considered, I don't know how to say this, but we're just trying to play with time and how we're thinking of the past, present, and future in relationship to sort of bigger questions about being, about existence, about these sort of like sacred sciences which we see in Amir's film, and I think with ending on Dana's film, sort of ending on a note of liberation, something that could be connected to an imagined future. So sort of starting with a wide conception of time, then going to Mike Henderson's and kind of thinking about our relationship to the past, and then eventually ending on trying to think of and trying to imagine a future that's more expansive and lives past just modalities of survival. That's how we thought of it. I have no idea if that made sense, but that's how we're thinking of it.
Okay, thank you.
This one's for Amir. I was just really curious about your selection of music. If you could talk about like how it was intentional or how it wasn't intentional. What was intentional about it?
In each one, or anyone in particular?
Mainly the early ones.
The early one, the first one. So I use Shabazz Palace's song. I use the Sounds of Blackness song. I just was kind of like thumbing through my library, and that Sounds of Blackness song, my parents used to play with that, so my parents used to play that song for me, so I was thinking about, how to use things like from my childhood in my work, and I just threw that song in there, and it just went along with the dancer, so. But yeah, that first one, I just was playing around with things and kind of just like, left it like how it is for now, but it could always change.
Can I actually piggyback on that? And Dana, your use of "Hold On, Be Strong," which I didn't know existed, and as someone that's from Atlanta, I had a moment where I was ashamed. This is by Outkast, and so I've been listening to it ever since. But yeah, just can you talk about the use of that song?
So I didn't get to that song. Okay, so I got to Liberation first. Have you heard that one by Outkast? Okay. So I started with Liberation. Okay, and then I got to Hold On, Be Strong. And I missed it for a very long time too. And then I was just on YouTube and I just played, I guess, a discography of Outkast, and that song came on. And then I was just like, I can't use this, I'm gonna sing it. I'm gonna, redo it or re-sing it. And then I was just like, I can't sing. So I just was like, I'm just gonna use it, and if I get sued, whatever. But that song, I feel like it's almost like it's like a present day Negro spiritual. And when I heard it, I just felt so much. And then when I put it to the video clips, I felt it was just so powerful. And I just came by it by chance, and it just fit so perfectly. But Hold On, Be Strong is just like, I don't know, it's like it's kind of encouraging, because like things around us can get really bad, but it's like, hold on, be strong. And it's just like, I don't know, it's kind of like a mantra to me now. But yeah, that song is, I don't know, it's powerful, and it's so simple, but it's so powerful. But I just happened to come across it on YouTube. Missed it like you though.
I think it's really interesting what you said about, I'm gonna get sued for this. So much of well, not so much, but Amir, a lot of your work is pulling from other people's work. And there's something within experimental film that maybe has a little bit more room for liberation in that realm, like that you have that liberty. Do you think that puts constraints on where your film might be shown in the future, or your usage of it? I know for you, Amir, you had some clearances from like Chicago Film Archive and that sort of thing. But I'm just curious about like how you think about sampling, and also in the second film, that time frame is very different, and it also does not include any sampling, which I think is really interesting. I don't know, maybe if you guys could just talk a little bit about that.
This is actually my first time like showing this work, and a work that has, sampling, remixing things. I feel like there's some type of way to get around it as like public art, and then the amount of footage that you use in comparison to original footage. I think that there's like some type of give and take. But a professor just recently said that she wants to help me kind of contact LaFace to see if I can use this song. If not, then I'm gonna have to obviously like figure out another way. But this is something that I'm learning and I'm navigating. I hope I don't get sued. But I'm gonna work on getting clearance for this song. If not, then it'll be something entirely different then.
I guess like, when I'm editing, I just use random things that just come to mind, and I don't think about them being licensed things or not. If they work, I just leave them there. But if, there were a time where I had to, I make a compromise and I'll just change the song, or if it was really good, I just argue for it. So I don't know. I don't really think about it. I just try to just keep like making things.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bigger question in there that I didn't ask about, just like the way that we use materials and the way that we feel that we have access to a lot of different things. And you said earlier, like, there's so many Black images, how do I choose which one? I guess we're just like, I'm not landing on that question right now, but I know that it's in there somewhere. So if you could just talk a little, like maybe Jheanelle, I don't know if you have something to say about that.
Well, it's like, as soon as someone like me says the archive, it becomes like really, so I've been like battling with that, but you just brought it out, thank you. But I mean, I think, no, I just didn't want to be like the archive, but you can't not, because I think the archive has, especially from younger filmmakers and artists that I've engaged with in the last few years, it's reparative, right? So, I mean, that conversation started, or maybe it started, or it's always been around, but even just thinking of Cheryl Dundy as the Watermelon Woman and how it was politically important for her to sort of excavate the specter of like a Black queer woman that was just obscured through history and through representations in media. But I think it's just been reparative and politically important, and I think especially just like how the internet and digital media has democratized work and production. There's just a lot to draw from, and there's so much, I think, strength that we can draw from it when we realize maybe what has been hidden from us, or when we realize like what agency we have had, but then conversely should have had when it comes to media and our art. So I think it's just like, it's just important folks know it, and I think I'm very happy that it's present in so much work that I find valuable.
Thank you. This question's for Amir. It's more about your process of filmmaking. Since you do work with some found and archived footage, I'm just wondering, do you find yourself that when do you have yourself starting with a theme, and then you find footage that to kind of like, go together with that theme, or do you have like images, like an archive bank, and then you see something that kind of sparks your interest, and then a theme or message comes from that?
With the film I did with like the Chicago Film Archives, they asked me to do the project, and I just asked them for everything they had of Black people. So they just gave me a folder full of things, and I started to pull from there, to create a story around spirituality. And then for the Black Chains video, some of that stuff was like left over from the archive that I didn't use from this one film, The Dancing Prophet. And then I started watching these other documentaries, and I was like, I could pull from these too to go with this footage. So it kind of, with that one, it was just a song and trying to find images to match up with the song.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, Amir could, so sort of with the conversation of the archive and kind of how I alluded to Afro-pessimism earlier, I with Optimum Continuum, I can't help but think a little bit about Arthur Jafa's Love is a Message, the Message is Death. And it seemed, it seems like a foil to it. And yours is more optimistic. I guess that's just sort of the tone that I get from it. Can you just talk a little bit maybe more about how that exists potentially in conversation with that work, or just any, like how you, like, I don't know, yeah.
Well, it was before I shot it, I had saw that for the first time, and I had to think about Arthur's use of images and the use of sound and the rhythm he put with those things, and how he was just pulling from these different archival parts from YouTube, from personal archive. So that's kind of like where I started with, like just going through all these images, looking at what I had, and kind of like compiling together, but also thinking about Blackness and how it exists visually, and everything ends like abrupt because Blackness is abrupt. So it's like this abrupt ending in all the parts of it, and it's just an ongoing thought process, but it is in relation to his work, and it was inspired by her for sure.
You can't drop a sentence like that and not expound upon it. Blackness is abrupt. That's interesting.
I mean, it's just like the abruptness of Blackness. Like, I mean, it's a lot to say there. I mean, I think, things happen and things begin and things end suddenly. I think that's a part of just life in general. But it's just like kind of like thinking about like a visual style, how to think about, because Arthur talks about how can we make films the same way we make like Black music. So in the vein of that, are this type of rhythm that you just catch visually and you don't really hear it, but you just know that to end, and using sound instead of using sound to like entice the eye to look for more, and then sound just ends and something else starts. So it's just like I like picking at like those theories.
That's about it for me. Anyone else? Have anything?
For Dana, for liberated zones, you said dreams kind of are the seeds, or like they help you to get started. Like, in relation to liberated zones, like what can you tell us about what you saw or experienced?
I will say that liberated zones did not start from a dream. That was more so out of desperation of finding a way to like deal with racism in my school. I needed to, I was pretty much channeling my frustration in liberated zones, the first part of it rather. Cause I don't know, I feel like the way, like where I was at that time, my whole physical body, my whole emotional body was just done. I couldn't even focus, I couldn't even function. So liberated zones is just like me trying to find a practical way to heal or to deal with stress, to approach the world better, in a better way. But yeah, liberated zones didn't come from a dream, that came from reality. Yeah, you should have been here last week. That's a dream question. I mean, you were here, but yeah.
Well, you can, if you have a few words about that, no reason to not.
But I know.
Yeah, I mean, but just more about dreams if you want to talk about that.
Okay, so I showed a film last week called Underbone, and that one was really stemming from dreams. So I guess the films, or even the work here, kind of looks surreal because I'm taking like irrational sequences from like streams of consciousness or dreams, and I'm trying to like make meaning out of them. But like I said before, I feel like the spirit or God works through me through dreams, and the visions, I guess, through dreams, and kind of goes into the storytelling of filmmaking. I guess you would just have to see the film to kind of understand.
And one more for Amir. I found myself laughing with the guy and girl dancing. I forgot the name of that film, but I was laughing for some reason, like because I felt like they were saying something to me that like was just like empowering. And I saw the second film with something after that with the guy in the room, the other guy, the older film that's in the corner. What's that one called?
Down Here, that's Mike Henderson.
Okay. Well, that one. Okay, so that's not even for you then?
Yeah.
Okay.
The second one's Mike Henderson.
Okay. I totally got mixed up with so many of them. But okay, well, I had a question about that one.
Hello, what is the question?
Okay, I wasn't sure what we asked or not. I know it's humor in that one too. Like what do you think went into that? Like why did they choose to like put humor in that and it's like so heavy?
I think Mike Henderson, and he's still around. I think he's basically he's primarily a painter, but he said something. It might actually be the quote might actually be in the program notes.
We can barely hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you. But okay, it's not in these notes. But he said something about wanting to make Down Here for like the Black youth of the time. And I think really that was functioning, the way humor functioned in it was like catharsis basically. And so like the white face is obviously meant to be humorous. So I think that was intentional, and it was sort of providing an outlet for youth at that time. Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, I think that's it. Thank you, everyone.